Looking at the list just quickly, again to make another point, out of the other 4 books that are like optional, and again, not to overdo this idea, but the second book, which is optional but in the same kind of style, because I'm familiar with it, is Frank McCourt's Angel's Ashes. And you may be familiar with that because it was on the bestseller list. People were talking about it, perhaps.
Yeah.
But you haven't read the book yet.
No.
Right. The interesting thing, again, to kind of talk about this a bit, is that in a generation apart, Frank McCourt, this contemporary author, is looking at doing the same thing in his novel, although it's called nonfiction, that James Joyce was doing. And I sort of suspect if, let's say, you and some friends of yours were saying, should we read this? Should we read a book about baseball? You might be inclined to say, well, I follow the Red Sox. Guess what? I'll go read The Summer of '49. That's on your list.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as a youngster, because you weren't born there, and so that was like ancient history. But the curious thing, again, without pointing it out, and it doesn't appear as if they're saying much about it, the author of the book, The Summer of '49, between the great contest between the Red Sox and the Yankees, Halberstam is the name of the author. Is that an author that you have any familiarity with?
No.
Probably not. Yeah. It just seems to me, I'm just drawing this out to see that I think, there's always terrific programs. I think the summer reading program is a good thing in concept, but for people to make choices, maybe you'd go down to the library and ask the reference librarian, like, well, what's this book all about? But again, that requires more time, more energy, and that kind of thing. Halberstam is a writer of our time who's written an awful lot, and some people think he's terrific, and some people think he's not so terrific. And so I think if you're going to make a choice, it would seem to me that if you know something about the book itself more than just what's the content, you can make more interesting choices. Do you think it would make any sense in a practical way, and this is going to be would be very, very difficult? Let's suppose in June your English teacher says, well, here are these 5 books. And maybe the English teacher hasn't got, who knows, the ability to kind of make an awful lot of comparisons back and forth about the books and give you some insight into what to read. The fact that some people may go away for the summer, I know some students just travel an awful lot, they're just not around. That would make it difficult. But what if an adult, because maybe it's difficult for teachers or somebody, made themselves available either at the library or somewhere to say, if I have questions, I'm stuck in the middle of this book and I don't know what's going on. Do you think it would be helpful to have some resources, say,
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be very helpful to at least have something to fall back on, like if you're having trouble, because like to read, something like James Joyce would be something we read in school together with teacher helping us, and
page
after page, like analyzing everything. But just when we're on our own in the summer, we need something to help us. Like.
Right. So maybe that's a suggestion that we or a few of us could kind of make, because it seems to me that, again, I'm not involved, but looking at it carefully here, you really do need somewhat of a coach along the way.
Definitely. Because I personally understand books so much better, but with the teacher like helping us analyze.
Now suppose you're in a lot of the musical activities at the high school. I say a lot, like you're playing in different groups, and you've been studying music for how long?
Since the 3rd grade, I guess.
Okay, so a long period of time. And you're good because people tell me how good you are. Anyway, the point would be, suppose the director of music, said to you in June, right before school ended, there's some new things I want you to learn, new techniques. And he gave you some music and said, see me in September and I'll see how well you've done.
Yeah.
Would that seem...
That would seem, I don't know, just like bad. I mean, well, not bad, but like Yeah, you
be
need
hard,
like help.
hard to do.
Hard to do. Yeah.
Especially if it's new stuff. Right?
Yeah, you need help.
Yeah.
You can't like always do it by yourself. You need like different like
Coaching,
sources and coaching
yeah.
coming.
Now you run cross country.
Right.
And outdoor track.
Yeah.
Now again, I'm wondering, make these comparisons, but I think it's a worthwhile comparison to take a look at. I just noticed the other day that the 1 mile record for time was broken by this man. It's just incredible. And they're saying, suppose people took a look at how to increase speed and endurance and really get to be crackerjack runners. And they came up with a new training regimen, I'll call it, a program. So your track coach says to you, Matt, when you come back and do cross country in the fall, we're going to turn you into our interscholastic all-state runner. But here are the things you need to be doing. And it just kind of gives you a folder, like, of things to do. Now that may be very useful, but then you can maybe get halfway into it and say, this is not working.
I know, yeah.
So it's the same idea, I think.
Exactly,
yeah. Yeah, you need some coaching.
Same.
Tell me about one thing which we had talked about briefly as saying as a change. I don't think we've talked about it in particular, but we said there's a testing that went on earlier, and now they call it assessment, and there's more stuff happening. And you've got this form to write, let's say, a 3-page, call it an essay or whatever, material on the books you read in English. What's really changed in a significant way this year is the amount that this testing, if you will, or assessment counts toward your first term grade. Right. And again, for the viewers, to realize that as you go in and hand in this material to be graded, it counts as 10% of your first term grade.
10%, yeah.
10%. That's like, gotta sit back and think about that one.
It's a big chunk, yeah.
It's a big chunk. Now you're a student who does well, and lots of students do well, but if for whatever reason you or someone else were unable to finish the material and were unable to really do well, then you begin that first term with like a handicap.
Yeah.
Like a lap behind everybody else.
Exactly, yeah.
Which you can never make up. So in one sense, it should have been made, I'm not sure it has been. One of the reasons I'm drawing this out is because it's not clear to me that everybody, like all the seniors, really understand the implications.
Right.
The 10% implication is a big one, and that's a big change. So if people, whether we like it or not at this point, are not taking it as conscientiously and as seriously, it certainly will have an effect on the first term grade.
Right.
Kind of a crucial matter.
Yeah.
But how do you think, in terms of between now and September, when you go back to school and turn in this material and so forth, in other years when you had to take a test when you go back to school, and maybe it's short answer or specific information about this book and characters, and you can kind of say, well, if I read it towards the end, it'll be fresh in my mind. Right. So that's one incentive. Well, I shouldn't say incentive, but one reason not to rush into it, because then you forget when you go back.
Yeah.
So do you think it's a better scheme now to have this free form where you can do it whenever you want to?
Definitely, yeah. I think they definitely have good intentions by giving us the reports, because, as I said earlier, it's much more open-ended. We can say more. It's instead of like having quizzes with like multiple choice, true and false, like very specific answers. And yeah, and you can read it whenever you want. So to do the
So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But the amount is the bad thing.
Right.
There's just too much to do.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you feel that maybe in conjunction with the library, because I know that the Walpole Public Library try to be of whatever assistance they can. In the course of the last couple of years, they've tried to put together like this homework zone where people can figure out what's going on, and the library tries to be helpful. They have some of the books on the shelves and so forth. Have you ever, because again the summertime is around, the teachers are not around, basically they're on vacation too, have you ever for any reason spoken to either a reference person there and said, gee, I've come across this book, like, can you help me? Is that a helpful resource?
It could be a helpful resource, but I think students would never think to do it.
Really?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not something that you can rely a student to do.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking along the line that we've been talking about, like James Joyce. Who is he, first of all? Or
Yeah.
what's this book about? And I just spontaneously saying to myself, the library does have a reference librarian and a director and assistant director who are knowledgeable people, and they read a lot. It just might be the possibility that if people like yourself or others, friends that you know, say, I'm just stuck, that's a resource, but it's not an official one, so to speak. But
Yeah.
we do need to read that kind of thing.